Jesus is challenging the Pharisees about the question of the Sabbath, because he knows their attitude towards the Sabbath. These are very traditional people. In fact, they are custodians of the tradition of the traditions of the community. So it is their duty to ensure that everybody in the community obeys what custom says. And the Sabbath is one of those sacrosanct things, if you like, that they ensured that everybody obeyed. But Jesus is trying to change their understanding of what a Sabbath is supposed to be. According to them, no one is supposed to do anything on the Sabbath. In fact, you shouldn't even cook on the Sabbath. You shouldn't sweep on the Sabbath. You shouldn't do any form of labor, any form of work on the Sabbath. And that, for them, that is the proper way of observing the Sabbath day. And so, in the end, the Sabbath day becomes a burden to them, because whenever it comes, they have to sit down and say, okay, so we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this. But that is not what a Sabbath is supposed to be. And Jesus is doing what he's doing on the Sabbath in order to help them understand the correct way of observing this day. He's asking them questions and they're not able to respond. He says, which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well, would not do anything to save that son or to save that ox? It's like, you know, it's like, you know, he's introducing them to a world that they were, or they never thought of before, in terms of observing the Sabbath. So if you find an ox, your animal has fallen into a well on the Sabbath, should you just pass by, or are you going to do something to save that animal? So it's like he's introducing them to that, you know, other way of thinking about the Sabbath day. He's just from healing somebody, something that from deep down their hearts they find should not be done. Like this is unheard of. You cannot do something like this on the Sabbath. The Sabbath day has become a burden to them. They follow it so religiously that they forget about the mercy of God that is hidden, or that lies behind the Sabbath day. And Jesus is bringing to the front mercy, he's bringing to the front love, he's bringing to the front charity, so that they don't use the Sabbath day to overburden other people or their people in the community, but they use it to serve them with love. Jesus has served on the Sabbath with love. He sees a need. This person has been suffering for a long time. Even if it is Sabbath, I am going to do a good act for this person, even if it is a Sabbath. So Jesus turns things around. He doesn't allow the Sabbath to dictate how he should apply mercy, but he goes the other way. In fact, he uses this day, this Sabbath, to do something good in order to drive home a message that on the Sabbath, it is not wrong for you to do good, even if that doing good involves doing manual labor, involves doing even sweating. It is not wrong, because mercy comes before the Sabbath. The Sabbath should not be a burden or a cross. When we're talking about the Sabbath in this manner, somebody might be asking, so what exactly are we talking about? Is it Sunday? Is it Saturday? Is it Friday? Is it whatever day? There's this argument, around the Sabbath day. So, which day should be observed as Sabbath? I think the intention of Jesus is not for us to worry about which day is the Sabbath, but his intention is for us to think about what is supposed to be done or what is necessary to do on the Sabbath, not the day itself. Otherwise, if we focus just on the day, we end up just being religious without being Christian. Like the Pharisees, we end up being Pharisaic without using the Sabbath in order to serve with love. So many people out there keep saying, Vakatolika, hey, you changed the day, you did what. Me, I stopped responding to things like that now. I think responding to things like that is not very helpful. Yeah, because sometimes you have to think also of the intention of the person that is asking you those questions. Are they asking to learn or to chat to discredit you? Perhaps you just be arguing nemitima ikalipe no kulwa kuti mwalwa pafia kwalesa. Yeah, if somebody is asking to learn, yeah, quite right. I mean, we're going to explain what it means. But if somebody is just asking in order to tell you that you are wrong, then engaging in an argument with them or a discussion with them is just is a waste of time, I think. Jesus doesn't want to argue with the Pharisees about which one should be a Sabbath and all that. Jesus just goes into action. He does something in order to teach the Pharisees what should be done on the Sabbath. A Sabbath is a day of rest. God has given us these other days when we go out there to do the work and all that. But he also wants us to spare a day in which we are going to, of course these other days we also pray, but on this particular day, we are going to give him more time. We dedicate the bigger chunk of this day to him, to serving him, to praying, to worship. Not just resting. Now tambalala na remote uletamba bola timpasabat tuletosha. Yeah. Resting in prayer, resting with prayer. And that doesn't mean, of course, that you shouldn't do anything good for another person. Not at all. In fact, if anything, you should do even more good for other people in order for you to observe the Sabbath the way it should be observed, according to the way of Jesus. So, before the Sabbath, before all these arguments about which day should be Sabbath and which day should not be Sabbath, there should be mercy at the front. There should be love at the front. And that is what is important for God. Tomorrow you and I are going to stand before God to be judged. God is not going to ask you, so which day were you observing as a Sabbath? Why were you observing Wednesday? Did I tell you should be observing Wednesday? I don't even know if the calendar as we know it exists in the mind of God. God is going to ask you a simple question. Okay, whichever day you are observing a Sabbath, did you do what should have been done? You were a Christian, right? Yes, I was a Christian. Okay, you believed in the Bible? Yes, I believed in the Bible. You believed in it. But why didn't you love? Why didn't you apply mercy when you had the opportunity to apply mercy? Why didn't you help that person that you met when you were in the position to help them? Those are the tough questions that God will be asking us. Not whether you were observing Saturday or Sunday, Monday, whatever. Those things God do not even waste time, because what is important is love, it is mercy, it is charity. Were you charitable enough for you to make the life of another person better than it was, than you found it? Were you charitable enough for you to make that environment in which you lived better than you found it? Were you a Christian by uniform? Were you a Christian by word of mouth? Or you were a Christian also in practice? You were supposed to do this on this particular day, and you decided not to do it. Why? So each one of us will have to give an account of what they did and why they did it, and what they did not do and why they did not do it, and so on and so forth. It's important for us to dedicate a day, of course, to be a bit more prayerful, to give God more space, but it is also important to remember that this day, this particular day that we dedicate to God, is not supposed to be a burden to us. It's supposed to be, actually supposed to lighten up our lives, if you like. And this is exactly what Jesus does on the Sabbath day. And the Pharisees, because they've been challenged, they don't have anything to say about what he has done, because they know from deep down their hearts, this actually is the correct way of observing this Sabbath. Amen.